So Get Emails, we identify a third effectively of your anonymous website traffic in the US, not in Canada, not in Europe. This is strictly US only product.
So if you have a website selling
Right.
whatever the fuck it is,
Yeah.
1 out of 3 people, regardless if they enter their information or not, you can identify.
Yeah, we can identify and give you their email address and post a record if you want it. But really, the email address is
Regardless
the most
if they
effective.
put their information or not.
That's
They
amazing.
need not fill out any form anywhere. We just
I love
pass
it.
you in real time their email address so that you can market to them.
Welcome to Seven Figure Entrepreneur, the #1 podcast bringing you behind the scenes with real online earners. No fake gurus here. And today we have the wonderful Adam Robinson. Glad to have you. Excited to hear about your story.
Hello.
And we got the wonderful Tyler Devon as per usual.
What's up, everyone?
Yeah. So I don't know you, Adam, but Tyler does.
Yeah.
And he knows what you're all about. So I'm going to let him take it from here.
So actually, how some of you might know Adam is kind of like how I met Adam, which was literally on an Instagram ad. Is it your wife or your fiance?
It's currently my wife.
Your wife.
She went from my girlfriend to my fiance to my wife over the course of 6 weeks.
Wow.
COVID,
Right.
man. You know, you gotta
Yeah.
get it done, right?
Yeah.
You know, we just had a conversation about this. Everything is COVID. Like, why is the traffic backed up? COVID. Why is my
Exactly.
food cold? COVID. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
But
It changes the way you
anyways,
think about things, though. It's
Yeah.
like,
yeah, no doubt. It
'Cause
does.
it's like
opened
we
up
could
so many
either-
opportunities too.
yeah, it's like we could either wait until next year and invite people, but maybe not even, right? Like next
Yeah.
fall, it might be the same. Like it seems like it's not going to be the same thing, but there's no guarantee that it wouldn't have been another COVID wedding that we would have just waited for. So we're like, let's just have a tiny,
by
let's just have a
next
tiny one and then just get it over with. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we did.
I had a COVID wedding. It was fantastic as well.
Oh, nice.
So
Congratulations.
thanks. Congrats to you, man. Get it done.
Mhm.
Move
Yeah,
on.
but anyway, so he had these ads on Instagram where it's him and his wife, and we'll talk about this in a little while because I think it's really cool what you did there. And then I actually was interested in his service. His service is called Get Emails, and we'll talk about what that does. It's actually really cool how it works. And then I was going through the LinkedIn of your company, and I saw you also used to own a ESP called Robly, which everyone knows I have an email team. We got a team of 9 guys who send email. We send a lot of email. And so it's a platform we're currently testing. Initial tests I hear look great. And this is a company I think you said you recently sold.
I've signed an asset purchase agreement and the close date is March 15th and it's currently February 17th.
17. Yeah.
Nice.
So
So he's
I'm
in the
like next to
process
the
of selling.
calendar, like checking off the days, you know.
Like an advent calendar,
Yeah, exactly.
except no chocolate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's just doing a lot of cool stuff, online stuff, tech stuff, especially software. You know, we've spoken about software before, guys. Guys get great multiples in the space, especially compared to a lot of other businesses. So we wanted to have him on. Currently, again, I'm testing one of his services out. I'm actually going to be testing both of them because I think it's pretty cool. But with that said, man, before we dive into what those are and what they do, how did you even get involved in the online world?
So I didn't start here. And I actually kind of regret not starting here.
Mm.
I got a job out of college with the now defunct investment bank called Lehman Brothers, which if you're old enough, this is ringing a bell. I'm 40. So I worked at Lehman I traded credit default swaps, also real estate credit default swaps. They literally made a movie out of my job called The Big Short. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a crazy place to be.
Great
And
movie.
yeah, great job too, actually.
Does
like, at the
Leonardo
time. It was
DiCaprio star
amazing.
you?
Who was it? Was he in that? Was he in that movie? No, that
No,
he
I
was
don't
on
think
Wall
so.
Street.
Yeah,
Wall
yeah.
Street. My life wasn't quite like the Wolf of Wall Street, but close. So the funnier thing about that whole situation was like, I showed up to live in this apartment in New York with one of my roommates who works at another bank called Goldman Sachs and a couple of his friends. And the 2 other guys started this website called College Humor and Vimeo which the video sharing
Shut
website,
up.
in the apartment we were living
Wow.
in. And I lived in that place for another 13 years. It was just like,
Wow.
they were like, you know, it was this big loft down in Tribeca. And like, I was watching these guys and it just seemed so cool what they were doing. You know, I didn't even really understand what they were doing, but like, it looked like they were having fun. They were making a ton of money and they were working with like really young people. And it just seemed, I was like, man, whatever they're doing, like I need to be doing that. But
Yeah, no doubt.
it wasn't bad for me. You know, the only reason I didn't start sooner, I think, is because like I ended up in this job that turned out to be like the center of the universe for a couple of years. You know, it was like what brought the financial system down, or the product, right? The
That
over
guy.
leverage, yeah, the over leveraging of the system. But when you're a trader and you're trading the stuff that's doing that, it's like huge volumes, huge volatility. It's like exactly what you want. So everybody that was doing what I was doing, with almost zero exceptions, absolutely killed it for a few years.
Wow.
Into the crisis, as a lot of people were getting rinsed, because like this product was, when the market went down, you did better. You know, that was kind of the nature of this like default
Interesting.
swap thing that we were trading. And then afterwards, the market that I was in specifically, like it got a lot of regulation got imposed, and even like both at sort of on the banks and then within the banks, it made it just a lot more difficult to take risk and like do the kind of stuff that we were doing to do so well before. And I'd saved a ton of money, and I had this thing in the back of my mind where I was like, I need to figure this internet thing out, you know, like I
Yeah.
need to do what these guys are doing. Like I'm still living in this place where these guys have like moved on from. Like I want to
Yeah.
start a company like in this apartment and like
Yeah.
be this internet guy that I like watched them be for so long. And man, it's just the, the trying to like put myself back in the psychology, like the state of mind that I was at that point. Like I think that a lot of people who have success as a trader, you get this overconfidence about yourself
Hmm.
because you're killing it. You're kind of killing it in this smart, competitive field. You know, you're kind of dealing with business a little bit. And like,
Yeah.
you think you are more capable and qualified to do anything than you actually are, which I think is very helpful when you're starting out, right? Like,
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
agree.
if you had an accurate assessment of how difficult things actually were, you might not even start. But if you're
Dude,
starting from a
honestly,
position, yeah, if you're starting from a position where you're like, well, I'm just gonna fucking kill whatever I do because I'm the
yeah.
man, like,
Yeah.
like you will be surprised, but like you might get lucky enough to be surprised at a point where you're doing something that actually works.
No
You know?
doubt. I think it's Cuban who was saying that on Shark Tank one time. He's like, you literally have to be like a level of delusional to go into business for yourself because you're competing a lot of the time against multi-billion-dollar companies who are well financed, like well experienced, have everything systemized and processed. Like, if you think about it logically, it doesn't really make fucking sense to do it.
No.
But at the end of the day, if your spirit's in there, your heart's in it, and you have that confidence, like it's, you can do it. You can compete. In fact, like the fact sometimes that they're so big is completely in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And now one thing, you know, I haven't like scaled a company to anything big where it's like, you know, directly competing with these billion-dollar companies, but you
Yeah.
know, the stuff I've done has done pretty well, been great lifestyle businesses, and like I think I have the skill set now, whereas I did not then, to like identify some group that's being underserved, right? And like
Hmm.
figure out a way cheaply to get them a product, and you know, in a way that like the big companies aren't doing, which is, you know, I'll say it again, like it's the farthest thing from the education that you get as a trader that could possibly exist, you know? And like it's like so far from how your brain works as an entrepreneur, like your brain working as a trader, that you don't even realize. It's like the overconfidence thing. You don't even realize the lessons you've learned until you've learned them. You know, like
Yeah.
a few years goes by, and it's just like, wow, like I'm really thinking about the world in a totally different way.
Yeah.
I was just, what the fuck was I even thinking? You know, all of that stuff. But you know, it's all part of the journey, right?
Totally.
So yeah, I originally got out of trading, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like, maybe it was like 250 or 500 grand. I was like, I'm gonna take like a business school or a little more amount of money and just like throw it at ideas, investments, just try. I'm gonna spend a year trying to get into tech.
Yeah.
Didn't know what that meant. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
start hanging out with people doing stuff, right? And like the laughable thing now is, uh, I mean, I made horrible investments, and the stuff that I passed on, literally almost, it's like the stuff that I invested in went to zero. The
Yeah.
stuff that I passed on, like Plaid, these two kids out of Harvard who literally just got out of Techstars. I was like their first meeting. I'm like, nah, I don't really like your little idea that you have. They got acquired for $5 billion, like, like 6 months ago. Like this one
uh,
BarkBox, which I don't know if you guys heard of this. Is
Oh
is
yeah,
this
Yeah.
like
BarkBox. We know
yeah?
what
So
BarkBox
I
is.
subscribe, bro.
literally that was the first guy that I met with when it was like, oh, I'm gonna get into tech. My buddy was like, oh, meet this guy, Henrik. He's like done a bunch of cool shit, really nice guy. He's like, yeah, I'm starting this little subscription box thing. He's like, I built the website last week. Like, look, you want to put some money in? I'm like, nah, doesn't really seem like anything. And then like
Fuck.
I took this like huge
uh,
swing at this one of my mentors who was like this
I
guy,
love
and
it.
this is again like a perception. Like there was this guy who had invested in a bunch of stuff. He was a sales guy at Lehman. He was always doing this cool stuff. And like, I really looked up to the way he sort of managed his career. He had these cool
Mhm.
sounding investments. He was always busy with interesting stuff, semi-actively involved. I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to sit atop 5 different things and just sort of loosely manage them. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's my opinion, that's a horrible idea. Like, focus as much as you
Yeah.
possibly can on something, right? And then maybe it's like, like Robly, the email service provider I was talking about. It's like a couple years ago, it had gotten to a point where me working on it wasn't going to make it grow anymore. Put a whole other team on it, but still,
Yeah.
that was so I could acutely focus on something else, right? Rather than
Totally.
just
Yeah.
like, have 5 things going on. Anyway, um, he had this healthcare company that did this like remote patient monitoring. They had this contract with a VA or whatever. Took a huge swing at that. Literally a donut, like it's just,
Wow.
yeah,
Actually sounded
poetic.
kind of cool.
Yeah,
I would
exactly. No,
throw
it does
money at
sound
that
cool,
too.
especially if you like don't get how companies work, right? Like,
Yeah.
because the thing that I would say about when I left trading, like I traded sort of like investment grade and like crossover and a few distressed companies, meaning like they were over levered, their earnings went 10 over, but like the worst company that I traded was still one of the most successful companies that ever existed in the history of the world because they had public bonds,
Yeah.
and you don't really appreciate the fact that like these ideas that people have, like the difference between the idea and the actual execution of a successful business is like so massive.
Yeah.
Coming from a seat where you referred to this company as a shitty company that was like literally one of the most successful ones ever because it was like
Yeah.
relatively worse than like another company that you traded. Anyway, yeah, that was like a chapter of an experience. But the real reason that I got into this stuff was I was so it was a combination between always thinking that I wanted to run my own shop and like the internet thing looking so cool. And then another one of my mentors at Lehman, as I was sort of leaving, and I didn't go immediately into tech. I first sort of just quit and like partied for 6 months, It's
Yeah.
just like
Fair.
I've been working for
That was
10
probably
years.
fun.
Yeah, I've been working for 10 years. Like I'm gonna just like hang out in New York and like be a single guy and like tell everybody
Yeah.
that I don't work and like stay out till 6 a.m. on a Tuesday,
I love it.
Been
Yeah,
there.
totally. It gets old, but like it's really
Mhm.
fun if
Yeah.
you've never done it before. So that guy did not approve of this activity at all. This second mentor I was talking about, he's like, dude,
Yeah.
you gotta start doing something. This is a very destructive path. Get rid of some of this money, go make some give yourself a period of time to where you have to like, shorten your runway, like create some urgency in your life, basically decide
Yeah.
what you want to do. He's like, I agree with you. What you did do is not what you're going to do in the future, but like, I kind of think we're all going to work till we're like 90. So figure out what it is. What's the skill set for your next 50 years,
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, this is like the internet thing, it's got to be the next 50 years, right? Like I'm totally subscribed to this Jeff Bezos. We're in the first inning still. Like it hasn't even started, you know. COVID accelerated it back to COVID again, right? Like, but it's, you know, with every new day, it's a better day than the day before to start your own internet company. Like that is my view.
Totally, man.
Like
I love
it's
that.
just
That makes
all
sense.
building on itself, and like the things that are possible today, some of the things that are possible today were not possible yesterday, like because of like all the different apps that people are starting to make things easier. And
even the
you know,
platforms themselves, man, the ability for Facebook to help you with their targeting, or you know what they're doing. Same with Google. Like they've given you access to more data than ever. Mind you, it's anonymous, but you can still use that. Where before, like when Facebook first came out, like it didn't have a fucking pixel. Now it has so much more than it ever did. So I agree with you, man. Every day that goes by, it's just a greater opportunity.
Yeah. It's going to get a lot more granular too, I think, like in terms of what we can target. Because was it you I was talking to, Tyler, about our buddy who's going to actually be on this podcast? And you can target. They have a service that's based on geolocation. Like, let's say you went to the vet, it knows that you went to a vet, and then you can retarget based on that data.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's really cool. Like, I think like they're just gonna know absolutely everything about you and more.
And they already do, man. It's just getting more
for sure.
Yeah, it's getting easier for like the average advertiser to like be able to access that. Where before you probably had to be like Big Balls Target or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be easier to utilize. That's what I was trying to get across.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So kicked your ass, you got your head right, more or less, right?
Yeah. So somehow of these, like, sort of, you know, call it 5 things that I like picked, 4 were just absolute donuts. And this email marketing company actually worked, which was incredible. Like it's just such a gift that it all played out to where it worked. And how that thing started is also a pretty funny story. My brother, he started a company after college, which was like kind of an internet company, kind of not. Like he worked for his ex-girlfriend's dad and then started his own business salvaging and refurbishing electrical distribution equipment. It's like, what does that even mean? So like, you know, they'd like buy junk, and the dude went to Stanford, right? So a weird business for him to be in. So they'd like, if they're tearing down a shopping mall or something, he'd buy all the electric equipment, the copper wire and the breakers and stuff, clean them up, throw them on a shelf. And then somebody would like, if one of these things goes out, they need it like in 6 hours, you know, not like in the manufacturers can't produce stuff because it's like you have to like create a custom board, right? It's like one of these, the manufacturers can't move that fast. So like these like middle market guys exist to sort of fill that gap, the emergency.
That's interesting.
Really interesting. And then he used the internet like 5 years before anybody else used the internet to sort of source the stuff and sell the stuff, and killed it. So I watched him doing what he was doing. I was very interested in that. Much more interested in what my buddies in my apartment were doing, because it was just so much, you know, cooler sort of tech, you know, young, whatever. So my brother was using this product for email marketing customer reviews called RatePoint. And like in one day in February in 2012, he got this email. He's like, RatePoint says, we're shutting the website down, download all your data, no explanation. Just 7 days from now, we're going offline. And he's like, forced me the email. He's like, hey man, this is weird. Like, I know you're kind of looking for something to do. Like, I really like this product. This dude spent a lot. He raised 25 million bucks. He spent a lot of money trying to acquire customers. And that was in 2008, 9, 10, 11. He raised 25 million bucks. So it's different than now. It was, you know, it's more money back then than it was now. Like now it's just like, who's, you know, it's like, oh, you raised $1 billion? Not impressed. So our plan was, let's like kind of copy this website, build it on the cheap overseas, see if we can acquire this guy's customers, because we know he spent a ton of money acquiring them, and see where that goes. So meanwhile, I'm like trying to read stuff about how to be an internet entrepreneur. And this is like kind of a funny story. And like, what do you read? Like, I'm reading stuff from people who write content about how content is the greatest thing in the world, right? It's like content writers talking about. So like, I'm just sold on this idea knowing nothing, right? That like content marketing is like the way
The
to go.
shit.
You just write this stuff and put it on the internet and people come to you or whatever. So I made this video that said, if you, before we had a product, it's like, if you like Rate Point, you'll love Robly. Put it on YouTube. Obviously we didn't get a single customer from this fucking thing because that's not how the world works, right? But like
Swing and
somehow
a miss.
someone forwarded it to the CEO of Rate Point, the company that got shut down. And this dude emails me and he's like, hey man, if you try to do what you're trying to do, I can assure you, you will fail. I just did. I will show you something that will allow you to succeed with this business with 100% certainty if you come and talk to me in Boston. I was like, dude, when are you there? Got on a train that afternoon from New York. Went to see this guy in Boston, and apparently he was like all bent out of shape. These venture guys, he like thought he was like right. He'd sold 5 other companies. So I was right on the cusp of like getting this thing to where it could be an exit. And he's like, so like I started a review company right when City Search and Yelp and all these companies were starting. I thought that a merchant side managed review platform would be very useful. Turns out the product market fit never got there. I ramped way too early because I just sold a company called GeoTrust for 150 million bucks. My venture guys thought I had the Midas touch. They gave me way too much money. I hired way too many people before I had product market fit. And then we have all these people sitting around. They couldn't sell this review product, and we couldn't get, whatever, high churn, low dollar price, all the problems with SMB businesses. And he's like, the way we grew our last company was basically by scanning the internet for people using VeriSign SSL certificates, and then we'd like in an automated way tell them, like, give them an offer over email or whatever for GeoTrust to switch right when their certificate was expiring. And then we sold the company to VeriSign for 150 million bucks. Literally only business strategy was stealing the customers. And so he's like, I was looking for another way to do that.
Oh, I love it.
There's this company in Boston who was a pioneer in the email marketing space. It's the other one besides MailChimp. I can't say their name because I signed a settlement at one point with them.
Gotcha.
But it's not too hard to figure out who was. And he's like, those guys, and this was before things like BuiltWith and Datanyze. He's like, those guys are leaving an unbelievable amount of information just by virtue of doing their business about their customers all over the internet. My partner's starting a data company. I'm not going to tell you where to look, but just go look for their customers and you will find enough leads to at least get to like a beautifully cash flow positive situation with a bootstrap business. And then you'll figure out what's next after that. But like, do only that, and you'll be on your way. So I'm like,
who's this monk? Unreal.
Yeah, I'm like, well, his name's Neil Creighton. He's still our chairman of the board. He's great.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah. So like, and there's like a funny thing about guys like that too. And I've come across a couple of them, but like, our first conversation with him was probably worth like, I don't know, several $1 million, right? It's this guy telling you exactly more or less how a business works in a way that he just did. He's like, the reason that I know that it works is because 18 months ago, I acquired 8,000 of their customers this way, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
You give them a price and performance competitive pitch, they will switch over. I know because I did it, right? So like, the first hour with that guy worth like millions of dollars, right? Like the second hour worth probably like $100,000. Third hour, probably like $1,000, the amount of knowledge at that point that he was giving us about, because
you already had what you needed too.
Yeah, exactly. The details of it were not important, right? The bigger picture of go find the data. And then, so here's the funny thing so another thing that I would say, like in the vein of like Mark Cuban's comment about you've got to be insane to like start doing this stuff, is I think you also need to really, if you want to try to be not insane and not delusional, you need to feel like you have some sort of competitive advantage in the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
Before you have resources, because like you got to justify it. you know, you got, well, and you got employees, you got your own salary, like you got expenses that you need to very quickly cover. And in, you know, small business software, it's tough, like whatever,
Yeah.
15, 30, $100 at a time. It's just difficult, churn everything. So like you need some type of competitive advantage. So that's what this guy gave us, right? Like he essentially gave us this list, and it ended up being like several 100,000 people
Hmm.
that nobody else was calling, nobody else knew about. This company didn't even know it was there. And
Gee.
what it was this company was creating a community page. So like if you logged into their website for the first time, one of the links was to their community, which was like their forum, like their sort of like whatever. When they created a community page for these people, which was publicly accessible, it had first name, last name, business name, and zip code on it. And in the URL, there was a 6-digit number, unencrypted, like just 202642. If you scaled up by 1, it was a dead page. If you scaled up by 2, it was the next person, right? And they like didn't know.
Yeah.
So like
Well,
we just
somebody
took a bunch
knew,
of,
but
well, yeah, exactly. So we took a bunch of, like, we built this crawler that had like Tor IPs, and over the course of 90 days at random intervals, we would just hit a random number, grab the HTML, store it, and then like 30 seconds later, hit another random even number, grab the HTML, store it, in like a way that was
wow.
totally undetectable.
Honestly,
And
bro, knowing what your business is now, like this is all some full circle shit.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
so we got all these leads. It took for, man, building a product for the first time was just horrible. Took forever. Like,
How long did it take you to build ESP clone?
so that one, from the day that we actually said, okay, let's do this, which was like sometime in the middle of first quarter of 2030, you know, it took like 9 months just to even be like, okay, let's really do this, you know?
Yeah.
So it was an idea at first, and then really after we heard, yeah. So it probably, actually, no, I think we started middle of 2000. It took us basically 18 months to build the first
Wow.
round. To give you an idea, Get Emails, from when Get Emails started as a feature in Robly, so it's a little bit unfair to judge it like that. But from when we
Alright.
decided to spin it out on its own to when we launched, it was like
Mm-hmm.
8 weeks. You
Wow.
know, like it
Bird of a
totally, like,
finger.
gotten
Yeah.
so much more efficient, right? Like like I didn't want to distract people from Robly because it was still somewhat of like a pipe dream. Like, I
Yeah.
think this is going to work. People say that they really like it, even though the user experience sucks because they're like downloading files and uploading them to their other ESP. So like I had the UI made on Upwork, and then gave it to our CTO, and like he coded, you know, spent 4 weeks on it, got this minimum viable product,
Wow.
launched it, spent $5,000 on ads the first month, had 10K MRR after the first month, which was like, man, the first month of Robly, we had like I think we made $1,000, and like we'd been working for 18 months on it. You know,
Yeah.
it was just
That's amazing.
evolution.
You want to
you know?
explain, just so people are aware, what 10K MRR means?
Sure,
I was
monthly
just going to
recurring
ask
revenue.
that.
Yeah, monthly
Gotcha.
recurring revenue. So in these software businesses, which you know, they're becoming increasingly popular for people to talk about for a reason that you said, Tyler, like the multiples are getting insane. And the reason the multiples are insane is because it's recurring revenue, right? It's
Yeah.
Mhm.
predictable. And the way that you state the key metric, there's 2 key metrics. One is monthly recurring revenue. That's kind of like where you're at. And the other, probably even more important number than monthly recurring revenue, is monthly churn rate, which means the amount of
Yeah.
people that are dropping off every month. Because the higher your churn is, the harder it gets to grow the bigger you get, because it's just this leaky bucket, right?
Mhm.
You need to spend twice as much money when you're twice as big, filling up customers that are leaving, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what that is. So yeah, you know, Robly was a tough, it was just a slow start. Did it in my apartment like the dream was. like
Nice.
person by person. So like started as this call center strategy because that was the way we were getting these people to switch over because we had these phone
Yeah.
numbers, and like desk by desk, I kind of figured it out. And then once you figured it out, like I could hire salespeople and get them to get customers over in a really economically efficient way because this list was unbelievable. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
the perfect people to switch over. We knew they were
Yeah.
paying, like we had their phone number, we had their name, we had their business name. And then desk by desk over the course of 6 months, we went from 3 people to 39 people coming into my apartment every month
Wow.
or every day, which was
Yeah.
insane. And then
I love
like,
it.
the
A
funniest
roomy
story
apartment.
is, yeah, it was
Yeah.
this big loft.
Pre-COVID,
I mean,
obviously.
yeah,
Pre-COVID.
totally. Yeah. It was this big loft that like 4 dudes were living in, but then it was just like me and this company, which was kind of cool,
Yeah.
But like my living room looked like a trading floor at one point, just like rows of these screens.
That's so cool.
And then so for whatever reason, most of the people at this entry-level sales job were guys. And I had 2 bathrooms I was letting people use. I had one bathroom that I wasn't letting people use that like I was using. Maybe I'd let I had some women that were customer service people, but like it was like we'd work 50 minutes. They'd smile and dial for 50 minutes and take a 10-minute break. So like the bathroom lines were always like ridiculous during this 10-minute break. Like, how do we make a 3rd bathroom? So like I had this laundry room that had this big sink in it. So I had a plumber come in and I was like, hey man, like how much is it going to cost to put a urinal where the sink is? Cause like the drain's the same. He's like $3,600. But he's like, let me tell you a secret. And I'm like, what's that? And I'm like, well, what's the difference between a urinal and this sink? And he's like, he turns the faucet on. He's like, nothing,
Yeah.
bro. So we put a little stool next to the sink, put a little soccer goal to like aim at and some hand sanitizer. And I had these guys pissing in the sink.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's like such a funny memory. It solved the problem.
Bro.
Yeah.
And then
Do what
so
you
like
got to do.
the travesty of this whole situation was I had that one list, and then there was another way we had this even bigger list that was like a much lower quality sort of source of leads from them. There was like, that was like 200,000. This is like 1 million contacts. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get some guys on this new list and see if it converts. And I got my 3 best guys on it. It looked like it was converting. So like we're ramped. I'm like, cool. I got another 3 years of this. I need to get more salespeople on it, get through this list as quickly as possible.
So how fast, like if you went from, you to 3 to 39 or however that was, like what was that time period?
That happened in like 6 months.
Wow.
Jesus. How did
but it's
your
like-
monthly recurring revenue grow during that time?
Quickly. I mean, it went from probably 30K to like 200K.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. It went from, we had that size sales force for like, 6 or 7 months after, more or less, right? Like,
Gotcha.
and then we had this other list, and I was like, okay, we need 50 salespeople because I want to get through I don't want to be doing this forever in my apartment. Like we need the sooner we get through, a list is like, it fatigues, right? You want to get through this as quickly as possible. So, get everybody on this list, and like, it's just crickets. Like no one's even picking up the phones, So now we're in this horrible situation. I've like hired an HR person who's like super talented, like got an intern program over the summer. Like these 5 kids showed up, and like 2 days later, we're like, man, like this is not working. Like this doesn't work. And the other list is dead. We got to chop everybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was one of these situations where it was like, oh my God, but it was so clear, there was just no like,
no choice.
Yeah. And it was a horrible management mistake. I feel very bad for like kind of messing people's lives up like that, but like, you got to do what you got to do. It's like, if you're in this room, you're fired type of conversation.
Yeah. Fuck.
And then we went from 39 to 6 in a day.
Wow.
Wild, man.
Yeah. Wild journey.
Bathroom lines definitely got short.
Bathroom lines, yeah. No one was pissing in the sink anymore. I got some pretty funny Glassdoor. Obviously, people were quite upset about that. And like these Glassdoor reviews, it's like, Adam had us pissing in the sink, working in his apartment,
Yeah.
That's That's funny.
But the good point is, I'm sure at that point now you had a ton of monthly subscribers.
Yeah. Well, that's the
Your
interesting
overhead
thing
was way
about Set.
lower.
Totally. So like the growth rate basically goes to very low, but you're like we were already profitable at that point.
Yeah.
And then when you cut 33 people's salaries, you're making a lot of money all of a sudden, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
Totally.
that was great because, you know, like I said before, like these software businesses in most cases, it's just a lot. It just takes a lot of money to get them up to, you know, to
Get
cash
'em
flow
rolling.
positive or whatever.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that was awesome. And I kind of like always wanted a lifestyle business anyway. You know, it's the opposite of going into like a Wall Street trading floor every day. Like this idea that you can, you know, live in Aspen and still
Yeah.
do your job and ski every day and like whatever. So it was another phase where I was like kind of euphoric
Yeah.
for a while with this freedom, you know, with this like newfound
Yeah.
freedom that I had and like this life that I had somehow managed to create, which seemed inconceivable, you know, a few years prior before I'd started this thing. But you know, that gets boring. Like the email marketing space, this competing with like MailChimp and ActiveCampaign and like all these guys who are just incredible brands, like it's a really hard space. The summary
Yeah.
of it is MailChimp's an incredible brand. They advertise hundreds of millions of dollars a year, a free product, right?
Yeah.
By the time people realize it's not free, and I'm not talking about everybody, like there's super sophisticated marketers who MailChimp doesn't work for. And past a certain point, you know, you need a more advanced system. But like the double-edged sword of our strategy was the type of customer that we were getting was like a very low level, very small business, right? And that's kind of like MailChimp's bread and butter, bringing them in.
Yeah.
So like classic marketing sort of scholars would tell you, well, look at your customer base, find the best customer, and then go find more of that customer. But like,
Yeah.
And you would usually start, the only way you would ever get to like 5 million in revenue in the ESP space is by going super niche to start with. Like ConvertKit's a great example. That guy's absolutely killed it, making the best tool for bloggers and then distributing it through a channel that MailChimp was not in. The sort of like bloggers selling to bloggers, like viral affiliate channel, if you want to call it that. Like Pat Flynn is like,
Yeah.
you know, responsible for, I think he gets paid like 50 grand a month by this guy, Nathan, right? By his megaphone was incredible. And then he got into all these other pockets of people that were like, you know, anyway, so we had gotten to this point with a mass market product because of this list that we had. And we weren't in a position to compete with a mass market brand, especially that one. You know, I think if MailChimp weren't in the picture, like it would have been much easier to grow. But like, man, for years, I started literally, I was just like, what is MailChimp not doing? So like, I got this idea. I'm like, let's try to go above MailChimp and spend a year trying to build this more sophisticated product and realize that like, oh, there's like 5 other guys already doing that. Right. Like,
yeah.
And then, this company who we keep talking about, they cut their partner program. So I was like, oh, MailChimp, like that's a novel idea. Like that seemed to work for these guys. They spent $50 million on it. They have this network of people that's people selling software. You know, Neil, the president of the, you know, the guy who showed us the thing originally, he's like, that sounds like a good idea. They competed really well with that program. Try to take it over, you know, maybe you just swoop those people up. Tried that. Turns out it was just a branding exercise. It didn't really work on a unit economic basis. It only worked if you're like past a certain point and whatever. And then finally, I discovered this identity resolution space, which is the current product that, you know, I'm working on right now. And like, this to me was like, oh my goodness, like, how could somebody not want to use this, first of all? You know, in all my years in email marketing, everybody's trying to grow their email list, right?
Yeah. So first of all, it's a Robly autoresponder email service. You know, you load up your contacts, you can send emails to them, etc. But what you're talking about now, which is get emails, which is something I'm going to test out pretty shortly here. Could you kind of explain to people what that does?
Yes.
And like everyone listening, get ready to be terrified.
Yeah, you're not gonna believe it. This is actually one of our biggest problems. Like people just see the website and they think we're lying. You know?
Really?
Because they don't think it's possible. Yeah, explaining what it is creates objections, because you're just like, how that there's no way. And then there's a whole series of other objections that come along, which I can explain to you. But so Get Emails, we identify a third effectively of your anonymous website traffic in the US, not in Canada, not in Europe. This is strictly US only product.
So if you have a website selling
Right.
whatever the fuck it is,
Yeah.
1 out of 3 people, regardless if they enter their information or not, you can identify.
Yeah, we can identify and give you their email address and post a record if you want it. But really, the email address is
Regardless
the most
if they
effective.
put their information or not.
That's
They
amazing.
need not fill out any form anywhere. We just
I love
pass
that.
you in real time their email address so that you can market to them.
And
take
from a
them
legalities
all
point of
to
view,
one.
because I'm sure that's where people go.
Objective number 1. Here we go.
Go.
Yeah. So it's legal in the US. It is not legal in Europe or Canada. But we don't have any European or Canadian citizens in our database, and we don't capture Europe or Canada traffic. It's only for the US. The reason that it's legal in the US is the CAN-SPAM Act in the US is opt-out. It's not opt-in. People think that it's an opt-in legislation. It is not. So, like, period. There's no debate about that. The law in the US is that you have to have an opt-out link. So then you're like, well, why am I not spamming everybody? You're not spamming everybody because what's really important in email marketing is deliverability, and engagement begets deliverability.
The E word,
If you
baby.
bought, if you bought bad lists and just blasted millions of contacts, you would absolutely torch your ability to send email in the future. So anyone who's a super savvy email marketer knows that. And if you are acquiring leads, you are doing it in such a way to where when you send email, those people will engage with you at a very high rate.
Mm-hmm.
It creates
That's
a virtuous
amazing.
cycle. The higher engagement, the better your open rates will be in the future. The lower your engagement, the lower your open rates will be in the future. So, yeah, this is a way where by virtue of how we acquire these contacts and the filter that we put them through, the engagement on them is super high. So
I think I know what that is, but could you kind of explain how that works? Because that's a whole other piece. Not only do I identify people, but like you said, the more engagement you have on your email list, your deliverability is just going to be rock solid. And this, what I think you're about to say, is going to like really reinforces that.
Yeah. So there's the short explanation, and then there's the key to why it works. So the short explanation is there's 2 sides of it. One is the identity side, and we're part of a cookie network that basically, for about half of the traffic in the US, we have put a cookie in people's browser that gets refreshed on average every 7 days.
Nice.
And it's from them hitting different websites and stuff. So a cookie gets placed in their browser with an anonymized email address in it. And that's the result of basically buying our way into email service providers like Robly, who want to sell their open and click data to monetize, to further monetize their platform or whatever. So we've got encrypted email addresses that are for the use of the advertising network in a bunch of people's browsers. We put a pixel on our customer's website, or our customers put a pixel on their website that watches for those encrypted email addresses, right? When we see one of those, on the other side of this thing, we have partnerships with a bunch of lead gen websites who've basically got third-party opt-ins for the entire universe.
Yeah.
And we buy those third-party opt-ins. So when we see the interesting thing about this encryption is Adam@getemails.com encrypts the same way every time. You can't unencrypt it, but if I have the opt-in somewhere else, I can encrypt that opt-in and then just do a VLOOKUP. If the encryption comes around and I go into my big database and I check it versus the encrypted versions of all of those emails, if the encryptions match up, I know I have the record and I can give it to you.
Amazing.
Does that vaguely make sense?
Yeah. Could you explain that one more time?
Yeah. So
totally. That was a Canadian me saying sorry as well.
Yeah. So the identity part is basically things get anonymized in the advertising network. There's a bunch of anonymous digital identifiers for everybody. And the purpose of them is to do anonymous targeting with advertising, right? It's to take personally identifiable information out of it.
Yeah.
The
So
essence of this service is we unanonymize these anonymous digital identifiers. The
Only
way
if,
that we do that,
go ahead, sorry.
the way that we do that is we basically have a database of almost everybody in the US. And with the same anonymization language that the ad network uses, we anonymize all of those emails, right? If I could show you this visual right now, I would. I have a little slide that shows you like adam@realby.com looks like this. It's CBA21, like this 16-digit character, right?
Yeah.
adam@realby.com will anonymize itself the same way every single time. So you can decode it
So
if
it's like
you
a
have
code
the
for
email
you.
address. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can,
I get
you're
it.
not supposed to be able to decode it, and you can as a human being. But if you have the email address somewhere else, then you can decode it.
yeah.
So you match up your codes.
Yes.
So people would put your
exactly. You
code
match up your codes
on their site that would match up the codes, and then you could de-anonymize whoever
Exactly.
comes, or at least
Exactly.
a high percentage.
We de-anonymize anonymous users. Yes. But the key to it actually working, and the reason the match rate isn't even higher than 30%, you know, it would be 50 if we didn't do this, is we'll only give you an email address that we have a registered open and click event for in the last 14 days.
Interesting.
Why? We know
Open
they're
and
active.
click or open or
Open
click?
and or click.
Gotcha.
And or gotcha.
So engagement is everything. We will never give you an email address we don't know is super active and hot. And the biggest problem you can get into in email is sending to a spam trap. Spam traps do not open and click. So this is a way to ensure that we will never hand you a spam trap.
Smart.
Yeah.
Beastly, bro.
Yeah.
So like, you know, it costs us some money because we're not selling as many email addresses as we possibly could. But the only reason that people continue using the service is because the deliverability is good. So it's like one of those things where like, you know, we have to rein it in to this extraordinarily high standard for deliverability in order for the service to actually work for people and not just blow people up. Yeah. It just wouldn't.
So could we talk about your pricing a little bit? Because I know Gabe knows if you're generating a lead off Facebook, Gabe, what is it costing you? Ballpark.
Like a converting lead or just an email?
Just an email.
Let's call it $50 to $1.20. 50 cents.
What do you guys charge to identify someone that's been on a website?
So these start at 25 cents. And if you have
you're paying
scale,
a fraction of the price.
Yeah. If you have scale and they're targeted, right? It's not as engaged as someone who raised their hand, but like people who market on Facebook know that those are not all amazing leads either. You know, like
a majority are hot garbage.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So like, you know, so in our biggest customers who get like, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of records per month, they're paying like 10 cents.
Yeah.
Per record.
Correct.
Yeah. So, you know, we've had a couple of those guys tell us, it's like, if I can't make a 10-cent email work, like I need to get out of this game.
Yeah.
You know,
without jeopardizing their deliverability.
Yeah. Without jeopardizing the deliverability. Exactly.
Damn.
Yeah. And I mean,
so
what you will,
what
what you will
were
find
your
is
wire
like,
instructions?
Yeah, like in what you will find, to be totally honest, is like the open rates are unbelievably strong. It will take longer to convert than your typical opt-in. Like it's not going to work as well, but like the math works because the cost of lead is less expensive.
And it's such an engaged user.
Yeah. I've definitely been hit with email retargeting on a site that I haven't opted into before. Just saying like, hey, did you like this product? And I was like, I don't know who the fuck you are, but this is amazing.
Yeah,
and you think,
yeah,
the amount of money people spend, like we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. We spend sometimes $1 million a month advertising.
For sure. Yeah.
The amount we spend, like just to capture the leads, what we could be spending, or the leads that we don't even gather, but we could be gathering. Like it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people who have the best success are the people who have great funnels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And,
I
and
believe
really,
it.
it's like
Unreal, bro.
the best people at it, I would say, are people who like have experience, because it's like, you know, it's a different thing than an opt-in, right? So like people have like co-reg experience, for instance. Like you need to treat a co-reg email in a very different way than you treat a straight opt-in, you know?
Mhm.
So it's
Agreed.
like this is the kind of thing. It's like if you're good at dealing with this type of contact,
I
you can
imagine this
absolutely
would be
kill it.
better than Co-Ridge though.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm just saying in general, co-reg, I think, is a more complicated conversion than a straight up opt-in,
Big time.
right? So
For
like
sure.
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, this is not quite as straightforward as a straight up opt-in, but like if you
Hmm.
have
Yeah.
scale, the price is unbelievable. And
Well,
you know,
what if someone's running a campaign right now where they're collecting the opt-in information, right? But then they also have your code. Could they more or less like, see what the difference is? That was the test actually I was going to run, was to see what percentage of people I'm collecting through your service versus what's kind of already signing up. You know what I mean?
yeah, so like you can do that.
Just to see what my data loss was going to be.
Right. You could do that. We have a way, I mean, what people typically want to do is if we have a suppression script that you could put on the confirmation page of your opt-in thing, you know, and when people don't put it on, they're like, you gave me a bunch of emails that signed up, you know, and we're like, oh, we have the suppression script for that. But it's like a really good sign that we're giving them the same emails as the people that
Yeah.
signed up. And you know, the accuracy is not perfect. It's not a perfect
Mhm.
it's not a perfect technology. There's ways that it gets messed up. If someone forwards a newsletter to somebody else,
With
somebody can
yeah,
click
with
it and
everything you
get it.
guys have built in though, it doesn't even need to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So
Why
that
don't we
makes
have
what you're
this
sense.
looking
script?
for, if what you're looking for is
Bro,
a
I
list
just
of,
figured it out. Like
yeah,
that's why you got to click on all your ads on Instagram. Everyone's listening, click that shit.
Dude, the
You
amount
meet
of
beauties like this guy.
the amount of money that I'm spending on Facebook right now, we could probably have like double the leads almost.
Think about all your pre-sale pages that you run traffic to before you send to the offer.
I've spent
All that
stupid
fucking
money.
data, bro.
I'm
Correction, we can
angry at
only have
this.
the openers and clickers from those people.
right. Yeah.
Can I get a make good on all the data that I don't have?
Yeah. So that's what it does.
That's wild, man. I
It's
didn't actually
crazy.
even really know that ESPs sold their opener and clicker data.
So they do.
Yeah. Does every ESP?
No, I can't speak. I can't speak for every ESP. You know, I know we did.
Yeah.
I know a lot. I know a lot of other ones do. You know, it's just so
Give
it's
one
just a
wink for yes
way.
and
You
two
know,
for no. I'm just kidding.
it'll boost your revenues like 10%, and it's literally straight to the bottom line. And
Yeah.
it's not, you know, it's not a carnivorous situation, if you will. You know,
Yeah.
it's not really like detrimental to your system in any way. And you know, you get to the point with these businesses where you're just trying to optimize, right? It's like, how
Yeah.
do I get another, 50K a month out of this thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I can do that. Done.
Is,
you know?
is that data for sale based on a vertical?
Well, it depends.
Like, could I buy, say, opener and clicker data for someone who's like engaged with a car insurance ad? Is that doable?
I can send you a guy who's a broker for open and click data. I have a guy who reached out to me, and I didn't really know this existed, but I suppose everything exists. I don't know where they're getting the open data from, but like they have lists of openers that aren't that specific, but it's like e-com, finance, like it's broader
Interesting.
categories, but they have
Yeah.
huge lists of openers. They're not targeted
Unreal.
beyond being openers and very, very broad.
Yeah.
So it's cheap. It's like whatever, a couple cents a record, because it's like way less targeted than what we're doing, and therefore more difficult to convert. But
we'll take it all.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'll connect you with this guy after the call, actually.
Dude, that's amazing.
Just to test with it.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff going on out there that, it's
Can
funny.
we,
like,
Go ahead.
Yeah, even as someone who owns an email marketing company, like I didn't know, for instance, I didn't know, like when I first realized that you could do what Get Emails does, I thought it was illegal, but I was like, dude, I'll just sell it anyway. Cause like people are going to want this so bad. There's going to be like people who don't care about the can spam law. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't until a few months into it when I hired a lawyer to explain to me what the law actually was that I realized that it was actually totally legal.
That's amazing.
Wild.
I love that
funny.
you just
Yeah.
started it regardless.
Yeah. Well, I was just
He's also
like,
got a
this
mushrooms
seems-
business. He's trying to keep on the DL right now, though.
Dude, that's just going to be
like,
legal.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, he's on the
this
cusp,
just
bro.
seems so crazy to me that this is possible. That like it's got to be so marketable that I at least want to go figure out how to do it, and then
No doubt.
and then
Yeah.
go see it. You know, whatever. You know,
That's amazing.
That is amazing. Could we? I kind of want, if you can, man. Can you share some case studies of like people who have implemented this and kind of like the before and after of it?
absolutely.
This is just a sales pitch for Tyler. He's like he wants to be sold
already
more. It
buying,
has nothing
man.
to do
Like-
with the podcast.
Yeah. So
This is about me right now, guys.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if you want to see case studies specific to, you know, I don't know the necessarily the verticals of people listening, but like we have a case study section on our website. We have this really cool direct to consumer e-commerce brand called Cariuma. They make shoes out of bamboo. They're like fly as fuck. They're like, it's kind
That's
of like
cool.
an eco-friendly. They're super dope. We have lifted their revenue 20% all in. And this is like a, you know, they've raised 26 million in venture. Like they're a huge customer. 20% top line. Like 1 out of every 5
Crazy.
purchases now is made
Your
by
site
an
again?
email.
Is it getemails.com?
Getemails.com. Yeah, 1 out of every 5 purchases is from an email that we gave them.
Wow.
I mean, that tells you
Wow.
everything. That tells you everything you need to know.
Wow, that's crazy.
No, it's crazy. Yeah.
Case
Yeah.
study.
1 out of every
Oh, yeah,
5
there's a whole case study
purchases.
for fucking bamboo shoes.
Vegan shoes. Bro.
Unreal, bro.
The vegan market's
shoes.
popping off, man. People love
It
that
is.
shit.
It is.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is true.
So yeah, that's probably like that's the case study I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
That's-
insane. 1 out of 5 sales is basically you passing their
Yeah, connected to an email we
person back
gave
to
them.
them.
And they've been a customer. So like the nice thing is like the longer you use it, the more. So another interesting thing we found out is the first email you send people is the one that's going to make the most money, but most of the total revenue is from the long tail of just retargeting them. So like, does that make sense? So like you'll make $5 on the first email that you send them, $3 on the next one, $1 on the next one. But like a combination of retargeting these users over the next 6 months will make you $20. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yes.
So
Yeah.
and the thing that
Treat me
sucks,
like I'm a
and we're-
4-year-old. I get it.
yeah. The thing that sucks about that for us is Klaviyo, for instance. A lot of our customers are e-commerce and they use Klaviyo. Klaviyo
Yeah.
won't show you ROI that way. They show you based on the flow. So we tell people to set up a welcome
Oh.
flow, and so people evaluate the ROI based on what their welcome series is. But that's really understating it by like 200% or something. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, because they're not
Which
looking
we're
for
trying to
full
figure out,
lifetime value.
Like we created this order tracking pixel, and the first version of it wasn't, you know, whatever. So we're trying to figure out, it's just annoying when you have this product and you know that when people use it, they're going to think it's not making it, like, because we have some guys that actually track it in a spreadsheet,
yeah.
which is how we learned that this is how it worked, you know?
Yeah.
Like we have this agency that's got a bunch of big brands on it, and they literally track it for the brands. They're like, we paid this for context on this day, and we made this much. And like, that's how we know that it's backward loaded and it's retargeting that like, that did it. But yeah, it's, you know, this is like all part of the startup journey. It's like, how do you,
That's badass,
how do you,
bro.
it's like perceived value is the important part. It's like, I know the actual value is higher than the perceived value for these customers right now. How do we flip that on its head? Like, I would prefer that the customers perceive there was more value in them than they were getting, you know, like we were giving them something else besides just the ROI. So yeah, it's an interesting pickle, but you know,
dude, that's wild.
totally.
And like,
Yeah, it's like if we can just get people to stick around for a long time, that number keeps getting more and more absurd. Like 1 out of every 5 of their sales is from an email that we gave them, right? Like that's
Yeah.
crazy. But they've been a customer since literally like week 2, you know?
Wow.
Wow.
Um,
How many,
That's
if you don't mind me
wild.
asking, do you know how many records you're selling per day or per month? Have you guys kind of mapped it out like that?
yeah, it's growing. We do like probably a few million a month we're selling to
Nice.
Wow.
people right now.
Yeah. That's cool.
And like it's
That's really cool.
concentrated. Like we have a couple big guys that do like a few 100,000, and then like, you know, the way we
Yeah.
were getting customers up to, we can talk about the Facebook ads at some point if you want to, like, but
Yo,
that was
actually, so now
the
that we've
way.
kind
Yeah,
of told
that was
people what the service works,
right.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about that because I think that's very cross applicable to like a lot of how people should consider advertising. Because what
Sure.
you did was pretty cool. Like, I don't know how many times I logged into my Instagram and saw you and your girlfriend, now wife, sitting there. I'm like, and each time the script was a little different, and you could tell something was going on there.
Yeah.
And when I had time, I watched. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's funny
Never seen
actually.
it.
Like, dude,
So if you go to our website, getemails.com, you could either go down, go down to the footer, and there's a link in the footer that says it's Adam and Helen again, Facebook ad campaign.
Okay. Cool.
Right.
I'll do
And
that after.
that'll take you to this YouTube playlist that's like all of like the 35 ads or whatever we did over the
Oh,
They're funny
over
to
amazing.
watch.
this 9-month period. It got really funny. So and this is a weird thing for me to like have any sort of view on whatsoever, because like I am not on social media. Like I have a Facebook account that I don't use. I created an Instagram account once because in one of these futile attempts to grow Robly, my idea was to sell to influencers, and I wanted to do it through Instagram. So like I created an Instagram account, put 16 pictures up one day, and then tried to do that, and never touched it again. But like
Yeah,
Perfect.
my observation was like,
I'm anti Insta too. I like
Yeah.
Instagram, but I don't use it really personally.
yeah, my observation was like, you know, on Facebook, people are there to be amused. And to me, just looking at people look at Instagram and Facebook, it seems to be selfies of people just like doing amusing shit a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, there's this other idea that I had that was like, it also seems to be really short form content. And if you could, like, what if I could create a 1-minute amusing sort of like talking head thing every week? Would people start anticipating it? You know? And like we did that, and we were really bad at acting in the beginning. And like lo and behold, a couple months in, like Helen in particular, like we got this like fan club, you know, like just the same people every week commenting, like the engagement is unbelievable. And this thing happened, like people like were waiting for, so there were a couple other interesting observations. I will say them, and I don't recommend that everybody does what I did, because you know, if you've got any sort of brand to preserve, I don't think it's the right strategy. So like
I'm in already.
yeah, so like the first video that really blew up was when I was like, we made one that was like, the first question everybody asks is, how is Get Emails legal? Right. And we had these props, and it was just like awesome. It was just the creative came together exceptionally well. And then there's these privacy people in the world that like hate this.
Oh yeah.
And they're just writing comments that are like this long, you know? And like, I didn't even appreciate what was going on at the time, but like I ran that ad and it got 1,200 comments in like 3 days.
That's
a fucking
amazing.
ad to like a Shopify audience, right?
Yeah.
So, and it didn't really click. I was just like, wow, like, and like literally half the people were like, this is the best ad I've ever seen. You guys are unbelievable. And then the other half was like a novel, like diatribe on how big of a scumbag I was and was ruining like this whole ecosystem and blah, 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 blah. And like, so then I'm like, okay, the novel thing that I thought about that was like, everybody has the same 3 objections. I'm going to just explain all of the questions that people have during the sales process with these videos. So I did like 5 in a row that were answering people's sales questions and dealing with these objections people had. And then it occurred to me that the ones that were controversial got like 1,000 comments. The one
Yeah.
in these, that my cost per acquisition was unbelievable because the organic reach of the thing or whatever it is, like the reach of it was extraordinary. Like people would sit there cussing me out and like I'd wind them up and it would go into people's timelines who would end up buying.
Yeah.
You know?
Hilarious.
So
But yet they're commenting on Facebook and Instagram, which is like the number one like data scraper.
I mean, but that was this was how I would. This was one of my.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing every time to people and be like, okay, and you're making these comments to me on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then I have people jump in and get my back to and like tell them they were idiots and like all this stuff. I didn't actually like when that was going on because it's impossible to not get emotional about it. You know,
Yeah,
and like,
Sure.
and like these guys are the smartest people in the world. They're sitting here doing this all day long. They're just winding people up, right? Like at the end of the day, like that's how these platforms survive. It's emotionally moving people, and like the negative stuff incites more powerful emotions than the positive stuff does. So this is like a really inside view, you know, from somebody who hadn't really experienced it. So then I finally realized after I'd done 5 videos and looked at this phenomenon where like the trolling ones worked. And one of the videos I made was like, here's the 7 reasons why, you know, everybody tells me this is unethical. So out of all the videos I made, there were like 7 things people said over and over again about why I was a shitbag. So I made a whole video about why. It's like, these are the 7 reasons people say I'm a shitbag. 1,200 comments, you know. And then I'm like,
so good.
And then I'm like, man, I got to keep this rolling. I made a video on each one of the shitbag claims.
Oh, so
you know,
good.
Just like leaning into this. And then
have you ever been recognized?
What's that?
Have you ever been recognized in public?
Not in pub. I think if I would have gone, so like conferences didn't happen last year.
Gotcha.
If I would have gone to like the traffic and conversion conference, we walking with Helen, we would have for sure like
the 2 of you together for sure.
Yeah, we would have for sure had tons because that was like we were hitting Infusionsoft audience, we were hitting like Shopify, we were hitting like, you know, digital marketer or whatever. So like we would have been recognized, I think, but like we weren't. Well, it just didn't happen. So like that. So then the craziest thing was happening with these ads. Like I don't know whether our product's priced appropriately or not. Like the whole time we've been doing this, you know. With my experience with Robly, our average subscription price ended up being $60. If you read software as a service blogs, there's this guy, Jason Lemkin, who blogs tirelessly about everything in the space. The 3-word summary is like, raise your prices. The 5-word summary is like, sell to bigger companies, or that's 4 words, right? So like, and it makes sense because you're selling these recurring revenue subscriptions. And the bigger they are, the harder they compound. And like, you know, if you're selling like a 10 to 50K a month subscription and you have any type of sales velocity, the enterprise value of that business is going to be enormous very quickly. It just has to be, right? Because like you sell 10, 50 grand a month subscriptions, you've got a 6 million revenue business and you just sold 10 fucking people. And there's definitely another 100 people you can sell, right? So like, I kind of been obsessed in looking at what the next opportunity was going to be. I'm like, I got to sell a higher price product, And this crazy thing was happening with these Facebook ads where we basically lose money on everybody signing up. And then one guy would come in and pay us like 20 grand a month off the ads. Right.
Wow.
And I just like, couldn't even believe it. I'm like, I'm marketing on Facebook and we're getting these like 250 grand a year customers. And the user turns bad.
I'm glad you brought
upgrade,
this up,
downgrade, medium grade, whatever. Like it's the business has problems, but like that was happening for the entire time that we were doing these ads, right?
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned when we've talked briefly, it's like then it's like, okay, we got to scale this, get in other channels, whatever. I hired this marketing guy, and like sometime in July, it just kind of stopped working. You know, like we were still getting people to sign up that we were losing money on, but the big fish, just for whatever reason, stopped showing up. And there's like only so many weeks in a row you're going to spend however much you're spending before, you know, I have no ego about like, I'm not trying to be famous. Like these ads were kind of fun to do, but like, I don't
Yeah.
need my face out there associated with this thing. Like the day I stop making money on these ads is the day you stop seeing them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. And the other problem was we were trying to sell to these bigger people anyway. And this was bringing us a bunch of smaller people and some of the people that we were looking for. Right.
Mhm.
So it's like still not, and that's kind of like, who are you building the product for? Are you building the product for like the people that are writing the sales tickets? Are you building the product for the people who are like your ideal customers? Anyway, it just sort of made us step back and take a deep philosophical view of where we're trying to go with this thing. And then we decided we just wanted to do elephant hunting, and that's what we've been doing ever since. So
Nice.
Nice.
that's the story of those.
And now you got a podcast.
And now I'm on the podcast.
All with the
Yeah.
ads. I really like that you did talk about though, like lifetime value, especially for recurring products. I think a lot of people don't really get the value in that. And even like substantial business owners, they'll be like, oh, why would I spend $200 when I only charge them $150 the first time? I'm like, because that's the first charge.
Yeah.
Like once you start adding in the extra, and maybe in your case it didn't make sense, but just in general, to always think lifetime value will give you a huge edge on your competitors.
For sure. Yeah. Figuring out, and yeah, 100%. Figuring out how to maximize LTV is how the best. I think the digital marketer guy, he said it really, he's like, he who can afford to pay the most for a customer wins.
Yeah.
Right. How do you do that? Maximize LTV. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of different strategies to doing that.
I love it.
Damn.
By the way, I know you guys can't see, but I just dropped, I was looking at your ads on YouTube while we were chatting, and I dropped a picture in this chat. And it's
saw.
basically you looking like Donald
Oh
Trump,
my
and
God,
it
yeah.
is fucking hilarious.
That one was just like,
I bet
that
this
one was
blew up.
incredible. Yeah.
I like your makeup. It looks really good.
I know. You gotta watch
honestly on
that. You gotta
point.
watch that video after that. It is
Okay, I
hilarious.
will.
That was like peak creative sort of like performance there.
We'll
Dude,
include
That
the
was
links
great.
below.
I would recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend watching that one, and then also recommending watching the How Is This Legal one, because that was really the one that like
Nice.
got us started on like the next level. I mean, it's just really good. We're actually running one right now. We ran one on Black Friday. We're running one right now, just because, I think we were just kind of bored. We were like, let's go spend 10 grand on Facebook and see if we get a $10,000 a month customer or not.
Yeah.
You should do it on elephant hunting, just be honest. Be like, this is what we need.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, I know you.
Do you know how many?
Yeah, it's like I know you're sitting there listening to this, thinking that it's bullshit. It's not.
Yeah.
Big guys, sign up.
And you're gonna get tons of animal activists being pissed that you're pretending to hunt elephants. It's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna yell at me. I'm gonna wind them up. They're gonna comment more.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so easy to wind people up online.
I know.
So
really
easy.
is.
The art of trolling.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Well, man, this is a good one.
This is amazing.
We ripped through.
Yeah, there was really a lot of good creative that came out of that campaign.
Yeah.
And like, it's not really, it's a little too sort of like, with the kind of people we're trying to get now, it's a little too casual and joking and stuff like that. But for Facebook,
I can see that.
For the Facebook is perfect because it's what people want to see. You know
what I love about that, man? I bet your click-through rate was high. Like I was explaining this to an agency the other day. The ads they were using were so boring, man. They're so fucking boring and bad. People don't go to Facebook to look for ads. They go to look for the type of content you made.
Faces. Facebook.
I bet you that exactly. Wait, slow down. So you're telling me. But for real though, like that's another huge tip. Like think about what people expect to see on Facebook. If your ads resemble that, they're going to perform better. Like every ad Gabe does, it's not like a nice, clean, cropped image. It's like, it looks like someone took it with their iPhone, and like an iPhone 4 too, not even a fucking nice one.
Yeah.
I
think that's the key.
Gabe, he still rocks the iPhone 4. Anyways.
Whatever platform that you're advertising on, really think about the reasons why people are there. People are not on Facebook to watch advertisements for companies.
Yeah.
So if you throw an advertisement for a company up there, they're not going to watch it. They like funny stuff, like they like people saying shit, like.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I guess we
Dude,
should
this was
wrap
awesome,
this bad boy
man.
up.
Yeah, we should. I got dinner in 40 minutes. I got shit to do. This was great though, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I
I
had
feel
fun
like
too, man. I'm glad you guys had me on.
I feel like you were
Yeah,
talking
this
for
was
hours about this.
it's so
It's an
interesting because it's so out of the norm.
totally. In a bunch, a final thought. A bunch
Yes.
of weird shit that I never thought would be a problem have been problems. For instance,
what?
we have this
Tell me.
one very large nutrition product guy. Can't say his name. If I said his name, you know his name. He uses our
Very
product.
smart.
He's our biggest customer. He grows every month. He will not tell a soul that he's using it because he's like, I've seen
Works
stuff
so
like this
well.
in the past. I've told people about it. It stopped working, which is not,
Yeah.
in this case, an actual viable concern because our database is a quarter of the US internet. You can't ruin those inboxes. We've only sold the same emails like 5% of the time,
Yeah.
So like you're not ruining these people. Like there's no way to cannibalize these inboxes. With our current, of course, if you get big enough, then yes.
Yeah.
But like, dude, it's not happening. It's just not a viable problem. But like,
Yeah.
if you would have told me before I started that one of our problems would be getting the right people on who know everybody, them experiencing an extraordinary level of success and then not telling anyone about it, I would have been like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. This
Dude,
this
but
other
I feel
thing
though,
I will
I feel
do
though
that.
that like no. But here's the thing: people don't like. I feel like there's a point, but people don't always keep secrets if they're
yeah,
huge
no,
growth.
some don't, but like,
Yeah.
but like this guy, if he just opened his mouth in the right way, probably
Yeah.
double our business overnight,
Literally.
and like that's
You
what I
should
was
ask him
hoping
for a
And
testimonial and then blast
You know
us
what's
about it.
funny?
I know other platforms that he's been instrumental in changing their trajectory for
Yeah.
other software platforms. So it's so fucking annoying that it's like, dude,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? I'm just happy to have him.
Yeah.
Another one is
Too funny.
I struggle with how to present this in a way. Like my view on marketing copy is that it needs to be as clear as humanly possible. And like, you need to like state results-based sort of headlines, right? So like our headline is capture 10 to 15 times more emails, right? And no matter how I follow that statement up, it's unbelievable. It's like, it's like until you've sat here and listened to me talk about it, it's hard to believe that it's even possible in the first place.
Yeah.
So like it's
VSL,
just,
baby.
It's just like creates this.
VSL,
No,
yeah.
I mean VSL. Yeah. Well, that was the first Facebook I had like a really nice VSL about it.
Yeah.
So that's another weird one. It's like, and then if you're even to the point where you believe it exists, you're like, well, you're just going to give me shitty emails. They're going to blow up my deliverability. It's just there's so many points at which people can just dismiss this as, it's so out of the norm. It's not like an
the deliverability one is a scary one. Like I can understand that.
Yeah,
That was
and
one thing I definitely
yeah.
thought about. I was
Totally.
hyped when you guys said it's within a certain window of active.
Absolutely. And that is like, that's not the headline, but that's like the second you scroll down past the fold, like that's what I'm pitching.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey,
badass, bro.
We provide you with a safe and respectful way to retarget people over email. So yeah,
Hopefully you get
I
some
love it,
beast from
man.
this podcast, man. We have some solid listeners, so I hope you get some good customers from it. If
Well.
not just Tyler.
And Pete.
Yeah. And Pete, yeah. Pistol Pete, man. Killing it. All right, guys. We're gonna wrap it up. We're good.
Right. Gabe, Tyler, it was a real pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, likewise, bro.
Thanks for everyone listening
today.
today. Yeah. Thanks for everyone watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and all that stuff. Give us some 5-star reviews, the usual. If not, then don't do it. All right. See you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.